We have all the creams and potions and journals and everything of who we want to become, and it gets cluttered. And even though it might be pretty stuff or it smells good or whatever, we don't use it. And so I just want you to think for a second what that's saying to you. Like, I don't have time. I'm going to get to that eventually. Your house is always having a conversation with you. And so when you are mindful and you edit it and you are like, this matters and this other stuff needs to find a different home, it changes how you feel. So a really good rule of thumb is the closer something is to you, the bigger its influence. And so in your bedroom, as you can imagine, it's your bed, it's your mattress, it's your nightstand, it's everything that's immediately around you has a really high level of influence.
You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 176 of Design Curious Podcast. Today on the podcast, I have guest Amanda Gibby Peters. She is the founder and visionary behind Feng Shui, a modern, mission-driven, love-based approach to Feng Shui that helps people around the world design spaces that support their highest potential. With a master's in professional communication and 2 decades of experience, Amanda is known for making the ancient art of Feng Shui practical, intuitive, and undeniably magnetic. She's the author of Feng Shui for Every Day, 365 Ways to Feng Shui Your Life, and host of the top-ranked podcast, House Therapy. Amanda lives in Dallas with her husband, twin daughters, and their rescue dog, Ruby. I know you're going to enjoy the conversation today, so let's get into it. Hi, Amanda. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast. It's great to have you today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited about our conversation.
Yeah. We were just talking offline. Your specialty, of course, is Feng Shui. And I don't think I've had any guests really get into all the principles and everything on the podcast yet. So I know this is going to be a popular episode. But before we even get into all of those details, I would love to hear your path into design and to energy work with the home.
Yeah, so everyone loves this story because I actually came into it as a huge skeptic. So my background is in political science and communication. And so I had just finished a master's program, and right about that time, my husband and I moved to a new state, new to us town, new to us home. And, you know, a lot of things started to go wrong. I'd had these plans of going on to get my PhD, but we moved to this new place. We didn't have our people necessarily. We had 3-year-old twins. He was traveling a ton, and things just felt like they were unraveling pretty quickly. And for several months, I just sort of assumed big life change. This is just the adjustment. But it wasn't, there were no like silver linings. And so there was this one day where I had it, and I grabbed a book and I thought, whatever I see, this is going to be the answer, kind of like oracle cards before there were oracle cards everywhere. And it said something about Feng Shui, and I thought it was so nonsensical. I just thought, like, change my house, change my life. I just changed homes, not realizing that that actually could be the very problem.
Mm-hmm.
This was early 2000s when blogs were just taking off, the original influencers. And so I thought, this has made me angry enough that I think it'd be really fun to write about, like to try and write about and just tell people how it's not working. And so I bought a book and read through it, highlighted some things, and gave it my best objective approach. And the best way I can explain Feng Shui in terms of when you start working with it for anyone is you'll often read in like different magazines, big life changes happen. Like if you do this, that will happen. It's very transactional. But what actually happened for me was I noticed that our house was starting to feel like our home. And I was curious to keep doing things. And after I would say several weeks of making some changes, not big changes, just doing things consistently and trying new things out in our space, there were some shifts in our life. My husband got a new job offered to him out of the blue, and the salary was more than double, and he didn't have to travel. All of a sudden, all the preschools that were full, the one we really wanted to get our girls in had two openings. There were a couple other things that I remember sort of holding out on, thinking, well, that was all coincidental. But there was this moment where I realized, okay, I can keep being skeptical or I can get really curious about what's happening here. And I became the student and started just devouring everything. And that's truly what's led me here 20 years later.
Okay. Okay. So self-taught, or did you take any specific courses?
I said very academic, very cerebral. I bought as many books as I could find. Amazon was maybe out, but it wasn't like the prime situation we have today. And so I would go to Barnes and Noble or used bookstores and find books. And I thought I had a pretty good grasp on what I understood. There was plenty that I didn't understand, but for most people, I'm like, I feel like I could explain this. And luckily, I'd hired a couple consultants to come into our home, and one became a mentor of mine. And so I remember saying to her, like, I think I'm just going to start doing this. And she sort of schooled me in a couple minutes about how much I actually didn't know, and, really encouraged me to go and be certified. So I took a certification program and then came out of that. And once you start learning, you realize, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know. And so I've done several certifications since then. A lot of Feng Shui is very similar. There are a few distinctions among the different schools, but I'm always learning. There's always so much to pick up. And so I would say, yeah, I've been formally trained and I'm still in the process of learning.
And though you also simultaneously had to learn to start a business as well,
Yeah, I did. So when I started out, I didn't think it would be. I was like, I'm just writing about it on this blog. And if people are curious, they can reach out and ask questions. And then people wanted me to come into their homes. And so again, it kind of felt very hobbyish. Then there was a moment where bigger spaces or names or brands were reaching out. One of the first was AOL. So again, I'm going to date myself. They said, we want you to write an article about Feng Shui. Can you tell us what you think the quote unquote rules are? And of course, there aren't rules in Feng Shui. So I was like, people are curious about this. Also, when I did my first certification, decided to enroll in a business coaching program where I was around other people who were trying to pitch and promote themselves. And I just thought, I'll just soak up everything. And so again, that's something that I continue doing today because, as you know, business is always changing. There's some things that you need to have in place, but you're always strategizing and trying to figure out what people are wanting, what they're needing. Certainly over the last 6 years, I've had to be very nimble, in terms of what people are dealing with and what people are wanting from their spaces.
I know that design and Feng Shui definitely blend together really well. Yeah. To what extent do you work on your projects? Do you ever get into the remodels of the rooms, or is it mainly just the furnishings? And I know a lot of people think it's just about furniture placement, and it's so much more than that. But yeah, what does your typical project look like, I guess?
So I don't do necessarily design specific work. Luckily, I have House Therapy, which is a certification program, and I have designers that come through. I have realtors that come through. I have designers that come through. So I'm very fortunate in that I can refer people who are looking for that specific hands-on. But what I do, and you just touched on it, people think move my couch, change my life. There is a little bit of truth to that. But when people are going through, let's say they're looking for a house or they are renovating, I'm looking at how they are wanting to lay out the space, because the way we lay out space actually has an impact and influence on what we're experiencing. And if I can get involved in that process, then a lot of the things that you sort of do after you're in a space, when someone grabs the book and reads the book and says, I'm going to do this and this and this, that's a little bit, I don't want to say it's superficial, but you're definitely in a curative space. Like, okay, I've got to fix this, or I've got to add this energy. Whereas if you can get in at the ground level and you can eliminate a lot of those things that you'll otherwise be fixing later, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So would you work collaboratively, maybe with another designer, builder who is actually doing all the finishes and everything like that, and you're coming alongside and saying this color or this placement could be better if you change
Yeah,
it this
yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times we do that. I mean, it'll be like, okay, let's look at how the bedroom's laid out. Where's the bed going to be? Something that you will hear a lot of feng shui practitioners talk about is this idea of being in command, right? Having a solid wall behind your back and being able to see whoever's coming into the room. Let's say someone is renovating a space and they've set the room up where maybe their back is to a wall, but on that same wall is a door or two doors that come into the room. That to me is a red flag. And I'm like, while we're in this creative space,
Mm-hmm.
can we change that? Because those are the things that over time do have an impact. And that's one of the benefits of having done this for so long is I can see a lot of the suggestions and guidance and principles that feng shui offers that do really hold up, and some of them that don't have as much bite. And
Okay.
command is one of those. And so there are a few things that I'll, sort of exert my opinion on over other things. But yeah, I will work with builders, architects, designers. I've worked with them all. And again, that's what's so great about having a program now is I can teach people these principles and then they can go out and work with those industry leaders and help them create spaces that actually feel good. They can look good, but they also feel really good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. And it's great that you have a course that people can learn about these principles. So
Yeah.
if someone listening who's just starting out in design, maybe they're curious about feng shui, they want to
Yeah.
incorporate some of it into their process or client work, but they want it to feel authentic at the same time without
Yeah.
as they're dabbling into understanding the principles and everything, what would you recommend for them?
Well, so that's a really great question because I think a lot of people think, oh, if I get into feng shui, I need to hang bamboo flutes, I need to have mandarin ducks somewhere. Like there's this idea that it is, again, furniture based or it's a little bit more tchotchke, right? And there are a lot of symbols that have meaning, but if they don't resonate with you, then that's not something that, you would incorporate into a space. And I certainly don't work with that because that's not my clientele. What I would say when people are starting out, because I think a lot of times people want to make changes in a space, but it's like, well, where should I put the most effort? Where should I put my resources? Where should I focus the most attention? And so I think feng shui is fantastic as a filter for that. Thing that you do at the front door, the front space. In feng shui, we call this the mouth of qi, where everything that you're calling into your life enters. And so I want people to think if they've done intentions or affirmation journaling or anything like that, your front door matters because that is sort of a first impression to the world. And I love that Realtor Speak really backs that up, right? Like how people feel about a space is often, that opinion is often formed as they're approaching the space. So I often say, if you have not taken care of your front yard or you haven't done anything to that front space, the door, the porch, whatever, that's a really great starting point. The kitchen, which we know, like that is a really safe, great investment. The kitchen in feng shui represents health and wealth. And so it really speaks to your overall well-being. So that is a great upgrade or place to pour resource. And then the bedroom. The bedroom is so much tied to relationship, but people don't realize it's also the relationship we have with ourselves. And something I will often say, and sometimes on social media it gets misinterpreted, but I can tell what you think you're worth when I look at your bedroom. People think that's tied to expense or label or thread count, but I know, do you put yourself at the top of your to-do list or are you the last thought? And your bedroom is what sets you up. Think about it, it bookends your days.
Yeah.
And so it's how you start your day, it's how you end your day. And it really says, do I prioritize myself? Because if you replenish and recharge yourself, you're going to be able to go out and take care of what you need to and hopefully meet the expectations that, you want to meet. When you don't do that, then again, feng shui is not transactional. It's just this compounding effect. And it's like, oh, I've got to put that laundry away, or I've got to get the kids' fork picked up, or I've got to deal with these boxes, right? And so that becomes part of that conversation that's happening all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. So I would say those are really great spots to start. I mean, everywhere in your house is going to have a win, but if you had to choose, those are really fantastic places.
Oh, yeah. And that's a really good point about the bedroom. I hadn't put that together as far as like how you value yourself as a
Yeah.
place. But oftentimes, we get called as designers into people's homes and we see all the intimate places. And often,
Yeah.
if I walk into the primary bedroom and it's just like no headboard and maybe like just
Yes.
stuff piled on the nightstands and no lamps and just like
Yes.
an afterthought, I immediately become so sad for that person because
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, you deserve so much better than that, to
I
start and end your
know.
day here. So,
Yeah. And I
uh,
think there's a real urge to spend our money on what people are going to see,
yeah.
right? So that is a big signal that we are people pleasing and not taking care of ourselves. And you hit on
Hmm.
two things that I want to touch on because the headboard is such a big deal. It is one of the best, from a feng shui perspective, one of the best investments you can make because it
Mm.
speaks to having support.
Okay.
And so it is, to me, like high on the list. If you have to prioritize, it just deserves to be above the fold, right?
Yeah.
And then that nightstand, I often joke with students and my audience that those are like little mini altars of hope,
Mm.
right? Like we have all the creams and potions and journals and, everything of who we want to become. And it gets cluttered. And even though it might be pretty stuff or it smells good or whatever, we don't use it. And so I just want you to think for a second what that's saying to you. Like, I don't have time. I'm
Mm.
going to get to that eventually. Your house is always having a conversation with you. And
Mm.
so when you are mindful and you edit it and you are like, this matters and this other stuff needs to find a different home, it changes how you feel. So a really good rule of thumb is the closer something is to you, the bigger its influence. And so in your bedroom, as you can imagine, it's
Yeah.
your bed, it's your mattress, it's your nightstand, it's everything that's immediately around you
Mm.
has a really high level of influence.
Mm. Wow, that's really a great way to iterate that. It's something that I probably felt intuitively, but didn't
Yeah.
understand the whole principles. Are there other things that are some surprising transformation that you've seen through your work throughout the different areas of the homes and in your projects?
Yeah, I have a course, the Simple Shui course, which is these 12 modules that kind of take you through the fundamentals. Because I think most people, when they come into feng shui, they're like, where do I start? There's so much stuff. I'm so overwhelmed. And so they do like one or two things. And they're like, that was a fun project.
Mm.
This course was many, many years ago, something I taught live. And I had this woman who came in and she's like, I'm just really tired and exhausted all the time. And so I'm taking this course to figure out why I am tired and exhausted. We kind of move through each module and she's making small changes. And she comes one week and she's like, I've realized that it's my job that's draining me. And I'm like, okay, discernment, cool. And so we focus on the office and some things that she can change up there and put her desk in command. Another way of thinking of command is facing your life. It's having visibility to what's in front of you. So she made some of those changes and put some feelers out there and had quite a few offers come in. And so she was fortunate enough to be able to pick what she wanted to do. And she chose a job and it gave her, I think her salary bump was like 45K. I mean, it was pretty impressive. And she was, of course, excited about that. But here's the thing that I love. This was surprising. And I love telling this story for this reason. Her first day of her job, her boss came in and he said, okay, listen, it's really important to me that the people who work here have a really clear discernment between their personal lives and their professional lives. Because if you're all work, that's no life at all. And she sent me the longest email and she's like, oh my goodness. Like I came into your course tired, figured out it was my job. And now I have the job that actually supports the time and life that I want. Like I wanted a little bit more space. I didn't want to feel like I was working around the clock. And so I think those are the kind of experiences that people have, the changes that are so nuanced and specific to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it really just comes with being intentional in your space. So a great way for people to think of this is environmental metaphor. Think of your space as telling a story. And don't overcomplicate it. Just look at your things and assign one or two words to them and start to figure out how many things do you love that you're hearing and how many things are you like, oh my goodness, because you have jurisdiction over that. You can say, this is what I would like to see more of and give that emphasis or give that really good geography in your house. Whereas the things that you don't love, you can address or move out, right? And so it's starting to see like you get to tell the story with the things all around you. And you can do that in client spaces too. Once people understand that this is a way to co-collaborate with those goals and intentions, it becomes a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the questions maybe that you would ask should just be asked anyway of
Yeah.
a client, of like how they use the space, the things that they love,
Yes.
what really defines them, and what's the frustration, and all those questions probably just align as well with the practice of Feng Shui.
Yeah, I think too, so many people feel overwhelmed. I've got to make decisions. I don't have all the details or whatever. You just brought up a really great question, which is like, what's the purpose of the space? I joke, and I'm also serious, like every room should have a mission statement,
Mm.
including the closet, like everything, because when you define what the space's purpose is, it doesn't become a dumping ground. You have said this is what belongs here. Same with that office that becomes the craft room, that becomes we'll put all these things that we don't know what to do with or we still need to put in the attic here, right? You start to infringe upon yourself by not having really clear boundaries. But if you have these boundaries in your home, guess what you're better at out in the world? Holding your own boundaries. So
Yeah.
it just is a really great way to match the energy you want to be out in the world with.
Like a practice ground for
Yes.
for
Yes.
going out in the world. That's great. If someone would like to kind of know maybe some quick reference things that, like, if they're meeting with a client next week and they're like, I can't take the course yet, but what are
Yeah.
some focus areas that I should really look at as far as like balancing the energy, or just a design block that maybe a client might commonly have?
Yeah. So when I go into a client's space, I'm like, what are your objectives? There are so many things that we could do. So, what matters to you? Like, where are you looking for improvement? Are things going really well? Is there something you're wanting to enhance or optimize? Like, I get really clear about that because then I know where we want to start in terms of prioritizing the work. So, if you're going into a client's house, I would start with, again, the front door, just making sure, and when I say the front door, let's also extend that to the entry. Like, how
Okay.
does it feel when you walk in? Even if you don't use that space, which is the question I get all the time. Well, we come in through a back door. Great. Now you have two assignments. But you want the front door to feel welcoming, and then you want to feel welcomed into your own space. And the other thing that I think is so important in these spaces is some sort of stamp of self-expression, like you belong here.
Mm.
I think we are so untethered right now, just as a whole. A lot of people are looking for community. And when I go into homes, a lot of homes look like you could move the family out and someone else could move in because everything has been done according to a catalog, or, I just purchased everything that this person listed on their mood board, but it doesn't have that personality.
Mm.
Self-expression is not only a way to anchor yourself and create that sense of belonging, but it also lets other people feel more at home in your space, even if it's not their style or aesthetic. They just want to know what you're about. So I think in both of those spaces, having some sort of self-expression, I really think light is so important in spaces. I think it's worth the investment. It's worth the effort. Light is what we call a chi enhancer in Feng Shui. It lifts the energy. It can guide the energy. It helps keep energy moving around. What I get curious about when I go into spaces, and again, in my Feng Shui bag, we have a lot of tools that we work with, but where are the dark spots in your house? Because that will tell me where you might not be seeing things. And what I mean by that is we have a map. There's an energetic map that we can lay over a home. And where there are dark spaces, I know that someone might not be seeing everything in that area of their life. So I tend to do like a little light audit when I go into spaces, even something as simple as clearing up the clutter, getting things up off the floor. A really simple way to think of this, and almost all homes are guilty of this. This isn't, you don't have to be a hoarder. It's just, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
But when there's a lot of things that sit on the floor, that holds energy down. I mean, think about it. You look down to see those things there. And it can be all the shoes by the door. It can be all the sports equipment. It can be the boxes that were on the porch that you need to deal with. It's just the everyday stuff. But when it starts to pile up and you're stepping over it, those are little deposits of frustration. And then all of a sudden you're late or you're in traffic or whatever, and that just carries into the day. So I like to create or encourage people to have some sort of ritual or routine. You get to decide what it is around putting things away, right? Belongings belong somewhere. And so they all need to have a home. And also for all of the moms out there who do everything, it's also a reminder that you delegate.
Yeah.
You don't do this for everyone.
Right.
And you will have to repeat it many times.
Yes.
That's part of the process. Feng Shui is not a magic wand, but it's teaching people to care about the space and to have respect for the things that they have or they own. So that's another thing. And it lifts the energy. I'm sure most everyone who's listening would be able to relate to if you're having people over and your house is a little in disarray. One of the first things you do is you go clear off a bunch of counter space and that, right? Like if you clean things up like that, coffee table, whatever, the space suddenly feels more open and clean, right? It's the same thing with your floors. That's how energy is moving through your life. So I would say, look at that. I've talked about the bedroom. I've talked about the kitchen. Another thing, mirrors as a design tool, they can amplify light. They can make a room look bigger. There's a lot of different ways that you can work with them. For us in Feng Shui, they double whatever they see.
Okay.
And so we can be very intentional with that. So I would do a quick mirror audit and see what mine are seeing, right? So if mine's in the bathroom and it's just chaos, there's a little nudge to clean up, right?
Yeah.
If there's a console with a mirror over it, or say mirror over the fireplace and there's nothing in front of it, maybe you add some flowers or a plant. You know, those are other forms of chi enhancers, things that are just perpetuating a better feeling in your space. You could be deliberate with making it reflect a chandelier or some light. So looking at that can also be really impactful.
Okay. I love that. Is there anything that we need to, like any faux pas or things to stay away from, like never do this or never, like, I don't know if there's anything like that. But.
Yeah, I think that right there. I think that what happens is that people go to Google school.
Yeah.
And they find something that they are quote unquote guilty of in their home. And this is what scares a lot of people from Feng Shui, because then they feel badly about their house, or they feel like their house is cursed, or, I get these emails all the time. So I know that this is real out there. Everything is contextual. And there's really not an always or never. There's really not a set rule. You have to think, and this definitely applies to designers as well, right? Like every home, every person, and we'll say every project is so different and nuanced that there's no real like one size fits all template. And it's the same thing in Feng Shui. So what I encourage people to do when they go researching Feng Shui on their own is, if you read something that scares you or something that makes you feel badly about your house, challenge yourself to find things that are good. Like you owe it to yourself to not just focus on the bad, but to counter that with all the things that are great. Because I've never, and this is truly, never been in a home where I can't find a couple really fantastic features or things that people have done instinctually that are really in alignment with Feng Shui. So you just don't know enough to be scared. So I would say don't worry about the never or always if you come around those rules.
Okay,
Again,
perfect.
in quotation.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have been something people would like to ask because they're afraid of making a mistake when it comes to energy flow or whatever.
Yeah.
They've heard something,
Yeah. So something to remember there, because that is true. People think it's a magic wand, and they want it to be a magic wand so long as things are going to go well.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I remind people is, most of the time, if you hear of someone doing something and there's been some big win, there were things that were happening in the months or weeks leading up to that that you're just not hearing about, right? That kind of set that in motion. And it's not necessarily that it was a coincidence. It's just, again, it's very collaborative. So keep in mind, Feng Shui is not transactional. And so when you start making changes, you're probably not going to notice big wins overnight. Likewise, you're not going to lose everything overnight. You might start getting a few red flags. And if that's the case, just reverse engineer whatever you did.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not working with someone and you just know enough about Feng Shui to be dangerous, then just reverse engineer, because that's you just stepping out of it. Yeah.
That's great. Do you see that there's like a renaissance of Feng Shui practice in our culture among designers right now happening? Or because I know it's an older practice, but it seems like a lot of people are starting to talk about it more.
Well, so yeah, it's been around for thousands of years, and it has just because of migrations or wars or whatever, it's definitely evolved to meet people where they're at. And so you have, like I said before, many iterations in schools or approaches. And so I think that when people don't have budgets, people get curious about what they can do with what they have. And I think Feng Shui has this moment where it feels like it can contribute to that conversation. But it really can show up in any, like if someone's building a house, if someone's looking to relocate, if someone is renovating, if someone is making some big purchases, in all of those scenarios, having a little bit of Feng Shui wisdom can make all of the difference in that investment. I will say over COVID, that first year, I did a ton of podcasts, I think over 60 podcasts. And that was because people were stuck at home. They were all sharing space. People were about to lose their minds and they were like, what can I do? And I bring that up because I think when we're out and about, especially if we tend to be really busy, we don't think about the impact our space is having on us. And COVID was a moment where everyone's like, oh my gosh, I have to change this. This isn't working, or I'm feeling suffocated, or I'm not feeling inspired, or it feels so monotonous. And that's when I think people had this real HD moment of, oh, my space matters, and probably a little bit more than I thought. And so I think just coming back to that, and why I teach it is I want people to realize you don't have to wait until you're in quarantine to do something with your space. This is a wisdom that I think everyone owes themselves a little bit of fluency in, because again, you can always work with your space to change how you feel. You can work with your space to help hold you accountable to what you want to create or experience in your life. You can collaborate with your home. I encourage people to think of their home as like a family member.
Yeah. Collaborating with, letting it speak to you in different areas and working with it to help it to become better too.
Yeah. I mean,
support each other.
When you do things for your home, it's an act of self-hospitality ultimately, because you're taking care of yourself, but it like that just ripples out in the years ahead. Yeah.
I love that self-hospitality.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, you have so much information and knowledge and wisdom to share. And I know you have your own podcast, House Therapy.
Yes. Really bite-sized episodes. So if you want something for 15 minutes, I'm your girl.
Awesome. Well, I'll check that out. Yeah, I think that would be great to have alongside of my week. Do you do weekly or?
Yeah, I do weekly. Okay. I mean, until otherwise notified.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for about 3 years, and I'm like, how do we, you do a podcast, so you understand. It's like, wow.
All of a sudden, we're like 160 episodes in.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have a book as well.
Yeah, Simple Shui for Every Day. So it's 365 different Feng Shui tips. It's not calendar specific. It really is. When I wrote that book, what I wanted was kind of what I was looking for when I first came into Feng Shui. I was not planning on being certified. I certainly wasn't planning on ever consulting people, but I was just like, I just want to keep finding more things that I can do, because I was really curious about how the energy in my life experiences were matching up as I made changes. And so that's what this book is. It's 365 plus tips that are super simple. They don't feel intimidating. You don't need all these special ingredients or anything. They're just really easy things you can do that help you get to know your home and this energy that you're already steeping in.
Okay, so those are 2 ways. And then you have your course.
Yeah, so I have a course and then I have a certification. The course is a prerequisite to the certification, but the course was designed, honestly, again, it came out right before COVID. And it was like, if you don't want to bring a consultant into your home, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you my process that at that point, I think I'd been practicing for 15 years, that I've sort of developed for reading a space, how to prioritize. And so it kind of walks you through all of that so that you can feel confident in your space, making changes without, again, the confusion. Because all you got to do is go pick up 3 different books and
Yeah, when you're confused.
you're like, wait, what? Why are they contradicting themselves?
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. So people can take the course, learn a little more, and then if they want to be certified, you offer that as well.
Yes. So there's a lot there. Yeah. And I would say definitely if you're curious, hop over to Instagram. I share over there a lot of tips and insights in that. And so it's a great rabbit hole if a rabbit hole is your speed.
Okay. Yeah. We'll put your links in the show notes. So your Instagram is Amanda Gibby Peters.
Yes.
Right. And then your website is simplyshui.com.
Yeah. Simpleshui.com.
Simple
And
Shui. Okay.
yeah. And then the podcast is House Therapy.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll put a link for all the people who might be driving and listening. They can't go and look right now. Well, Amanda, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share for our listeners before we leave?
No, I really appreciate being here. And I'm just excited to have the conversation about Feng Shui with anyone who works with homes, because I know that designers, there's that overlap of we just really appreciate how powerful our environments can be. And so I just love having this conversation. So thanks for inviting me over.
Yeah, thanks. And I know I learned some things today. So thank you for that. All right. Well, we'll probably stay in touch and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks.
So I really enjoyed that conversation. It kind of stuck with me for a while after interviewing her, just thinking about different things that can be communicated in the space and that what it might be saying and what it might need to shift into just a better way of living. Okay, so all of her contact information is in the show notes if you'd like to reach out to Amanda. And don't forget, we have other great things for you, some free downloads and some podcast playlists over on Spotify if you need to cut to the chase and just hear the episodes that mean the most to you. We have different playlists for you over there on Spotify. Okay, that's all I have for you this week. Next week, we'll have another great episode. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.